Hello, everyone. Rob Goslin here, Director of Space. Welcome to our highlight reel, where we share some of our upcoming classes with you. These are just a few of the amazing modules we offer each month in Space. If you're interested in more information to enroll or to vote on these courses, please check the individual links below. We look forward to seeing you in Space.
Hello, Space!
I'm Gabriel Schenk.
And I'm Faith Acker.
And we are in the beautiful city of Oxford, which is the setting of Sir Philip Pullman's trilogy, His Dark Materials.
And for Space, we're going to be offering a 3-module series on His Dark Materials titled His Dark Materials in Context.
So we're going to go through each of the 3 books. You can take each module on its own or in a sequence, and you can join a later module even if you haven't done the earlier modules. You're more than welcome to join us. And if you have read these books before, then you'll know how rich and deep they are and full of context and detail. And we're going to be unpacking some of that detail, looking at the influences on Pullman from the Bible, from Milton and from Blake, as well as others.
But we'd also like to make sure to invite you, if this is your first time reading Pullman, come read Pullman with us. Talk about your questions, the problems, the issues of the stories with us and with your classmates. We're hoping to have robust discussions, and we'll go at a fairly leisurely pace so that first-time readers can follow along pretty easily too.
It's going to be lots of fun. We're very much looking forward to seeing you in Space. Until then, bye-bye.
I'm standing in front of Green Gables, perhaps the most famous house in the world that isn't actually real. I mean, it's real. There's a house behind me. It was the farmhouse of Ella Montgomery's cousins when she was growing up here in Cavendish, Prince Edward Island. What's really interesting about Montgomery and Anne of Green Gables and this village of Cavendish is how it has become iconic globally. Hundreds of thousands of people come here every year in order to visit places like this and to celebrate the works and the life of Lucy Maud Montgomery. I grew up near this place. I mean, I used to go to 4-H club in Ella Montgomery's church. I used to play in the graveyard where she's buried. We used to go to this place called Rainbow Valley, which was like a childhood paradise of fun. Nothing to do at all with the book Montgomery wrote, the Anne book called Rainbow Valley. But that's the nature of this place called Cavendish. Every second, hotel or home is actually named after something from Montgomery's books or the names of the novels. It's just all over the place. And it's exploded. It's become the second biggest industry in our whole province. I mean, just last week, I joined 30,000 other people to watch Lord Huron and Maggie Rogers perform just behind me. It's pretty weird, because the place that Montgomery invites us to isn't really Cavendish, it's Avonlea, the fictional village inside of the Green Gables books. She managed to create the space for a national park in Canada named after a fictional house. It's true, this inspired the Anne of Green Gables house, but in itself, it's not anything really that connected. She has created this magic kind of fairyland of experience, though, for people, not just the readers, millions of readers throughout the world, or the people that have loved the adaptations on film or TV, but people that come here to be part of that experience. So what is it about the magic of Anne or the magic of Montgomery that can invite us to imagine our world as something different, to create a different world out of it? I think that's the key question. And so what we're going to do is an experiment in reading. We're going to tackle Anne of Green Gables, which is perfect for a short course. We're going to go through the novel, but looking at it from a particular lens. We're going to be looking at it from the lens of fantasy instead of normal girls fiction or growing up fiction or realistic Canadian fiction. By asking the questions that we ask of fantasy books, or even how science fiction worlds are built, we'll discover a whole new element of imagination in the Anne's books. Anne of Green Gables is delightful and makes great close reading, and we're going to enjoy going through that book and popping out these things. I mean, I'm going to be arguing that Anne herself is the embodiment of magic. She is actually the invitation into fairyland. She's the portkey of imagination. She's our platform 9 3/4 to bring us into another world of the spirit. So I hope you can enjoy joining me in this space course and rediscover Anne of Green Gables, or discover it for the first time.
Hello, I'm Liam Daley. I'm a faculty member here at Signum University, and I'm very excited to be offering Inventing King Arthur, Geoffrey of Monmouth's The History of the Kings of Britain next month. In this course, we'll be looking at what is essentially the foundational text of the Arthurian legend, Geoffrey of Monmouth's The History of the Kings of Britain, the source from which all other Arthurian legends ultimately derive. Those of you who are familiar with the Arthur legend may recognize certain elements of this. Arthur's magically arranged conception, his war with the Saxons, his ultimate defeat by the usurper Mordred. Other elements you may not be as familiar with. He fights some giants. He commissions the building of Stonehenge. There's a protracted, backstabbing kind of Game of Thrones-esque power scramble following a succession crisis. We will also be looking a little bit at certain moments in the centuries-long and often acrimonious debate between historians as to whether or not this is an authentic historical chronicle, or whether Geoffrey simply made it all up. How much of it did he make up? You'll have to tune in to find out. I'm so excited to be teaching this class, Inventing King Arthur, Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain. I hope you can join.
Hi, I'm Julian, and I'm here to invite you to my book club. Across 3 modules, we'll read Frank Herbert's Dune. I can't overstate just how much Dune means to me. I've read it just about every year since I was 12, and every time I pick it up, I find something new to appreciate. And really, that's the point of the book club. Across 3 modules, we'll read through the book at a very relaxed pace, taking our time to appreciate it together. We'll read through the book and geek out over themes like politics, heroism, ecology, religion, myth-making. We'll unpack the incredible world-building and characterization techniques Frank Herbert uses to bring the Imperium and the planet Arrakis to life. I hope you'll join me for the journey. Let the spice flow, and I'll see you in space.
Heyo Yazund. Old English, or one Old English phrase for hello, be well, be sound. So I'm here to talk about for a moment the wonders of learning Old English. And telling you, a little of my experience was way back when I was in college, these many, many centuries ago. I was taking a linguistics course, and that's where I got introduced to Old English, studying the history of the English language, and I had just begun to find out who this Tolkien guy was, and the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and how much the language that was Old English and the languages, or some of the languages that are in the Lord of the Rings, resonate with one another, and I got just terribly excited. So I undertook the study of Old English, and here we are. And all these years later, I still love it. So let me introduce to you an ongoing series of advanced readings in Old English, and advanced simply because we're not using a beginner's textbook or anything like that, but sitting down with a text or part of a text each module to read Old English. And for many of us, including myself, this also means looking up a lot of vocabulary from time to time. But the idea is to familiarize ourselves and read what is available in Old English. And so sometimes we read some things that are really well known and are typical in an Old English class at a university or college. Things like Beowulf or the Wanderer from the poetic tradition. But we also read things from the prose tradition. And so we've read Apollonius of Tyre, and we'll probably revisit that text at some point. We've read some homilies, and we've read some other prose texts And there's many more that we haven't. We haven't really delved much into law codes or charters or the medical books or anything like that. But, right, there's a lot to choose from. And so each month, each individual module, alternating between poetry and prose, we take on a new text and see how far we get. There is no rush. There's no need to rush. So we go at the pace of the class wants to go at, and we can stop and pause and ponder things and what this word means or what this context means or what is making sense and all those kinds of things. So it is a really, really good time, and we have some really great people, and I invite you to join us. So Godna Dai, good day.
Hi, I'm Sparrow. Sometimes I want to get away with my journal and my pretty colored gel pens for more than a precious half hour. Welcome to Writing Retreat. It's a weekend from about 6 p.m. Friday evening, that's Eastern Time, until late afternoon Sunday, during which we meet for focused discussion, community building, questions, not many answers, but that's okay. Plus writing time and informal conversation time. I literally want you to move into someone's guest room for a weekend, to make all your meals ahead and make them so easy. I want to write stories or poetry or prayers or promises. I want to have that quiet, introspective writing. Sometimes it brings tears. Sometimes there's grief that we just have to write through. Sometimes there are old stories that we want to preserve. Sometimes there are old stories that we want to change. Weekend Retreat is all about creating a community where it is safe to do this work of writing, where your friends will hold you gently with your story, with your song, with your poem, with your memoir. And you know what? No results are expected. Just whatever you need to put on the page. And this is my absolute honor to share with you.
Hello, my name is Robert Steed. I'm a preceptor for Signum University's space program. I usually offer modules on topics related to East Asian culture, religion, history, language, and so on. Among those modules is one called Zen, History and Thought, an Overview. In that module, we will be exploring the various ways in which Zen tradition has been defined and has developed historically. We'll focus specifically on the 5 houses of Zen and practices associated with them, such as Zazen and koan contemplation. We'll also look at the ways in which Zen tradition has impacted the larger cultural complex of East Asia, particularly in the realms of the fine arts, martial arts, history, philosophy, and religion in particular. And we'll also explore the ways in which that larger culture has helped to shape Zen tradition as it develops. So if any of this sounds like it might be of interest to you, please feel free to come join this module. I greatly look forward to working with anyone who shows interest in these topics and exploring them together with you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Sarah.
We're excited to be teaching a course together on Johann Sebastian Bach's Goldberg Variations.
The Goldberg Variations is a keyboard work considered by many to be one of the greatest musical compositions of all time. In this module, we will listen, analyze, and discuss our way through the work.
We'll start with the background to the composition. We'll study the initial aria and the ground bass that underlies the entire piece. We'll then work our way through the 30 variations, listening to a couple of performances of each and studying the score.
Along the way, we'll talk about the basics of harmony and counterpoint. Our goal is that you come away with a deeper understanding of this remarkable piece of music and a greater appreciation of the genius of Bach.
We hope you'll join us.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Hamish Williams and I'm an instructor right here at the Signum Space program in literary studies, broadly speaking. I look at ancient literature and more modern literature, and in particular the works of J.R.R. Tolkien I like to write and talk about. So I'm teaching this module on Tolkien and the classical world at the Signum Space program. So by the classical world, I don't mean classical music or other types of classical things. I'm talking about Greco-Roman antiquity. So classical literature, classical history, classical philosophy, classical thought, and its impact on the great English fantasy writer J.R.R. Tolkien. So in the course of these 8 individual lessons, we'll be looking at various topics. I'll first be introducing you to Tolkien's career as a classicist. Tolkien grew up in a time when classics, the study of Greco-Roman antiquity, was extremely important at schools, and he had a very thorough education in the classics and used classics to think about problems in the modern world. So we'll talk about that in the first lesson. And as we go along, we'll look at different ancient literary or cultural genres, such as ancient epics, Homer and Virgil, classical philosophy, Plato, tragedy, Sophocles, poetry, Ovid's Metamorphoses, history, right, and so on. We'll look at all these different genres and great writers. And we'll wrap it up by looking at one of my favorite topics in the last lesson, which is classical reception. So how modern writers like Tolkien take the ancient thought and reframe it in modern terms. So the question, why should you study this course? Well, I think 2 main reasons. Firstly, if you're a lover of Tolkien's writings, to understand his ideas on a deeper level, right? Tolkien was saw himself in the sort of great Western literary tradition stemming from Homer, Virgil, the Christian tradition, Beowulf, medieval writers, Shakespeare. Tolkien saw himself in this tradition, and many of his ideas, whether it's utopianism, the sublime, hospitality, decline and fall, these kind of narratives, these kind of ideas, Tolkien receives them from the ancient world. And so to understand his works better, we had better have a look at the ancient writing. Also, the course aims to introduce those of you who are less familiar with classical literature and thought, or not familiar at all, to give you a basic grounding in the classics at a very elementary, fun, interactive level. Okay. And so one of the aims of this class, obviously, is not to make it too strict, too formal, but after I give a brief introduction into a topic, to discuss key themes, ideas, characters, plots, etc. in these works, make it fun, make it interesting, which is why we read literature in the first place. So I hope you found that interesting and select my course, and yeah, bye for now.
Hello, my name is Isaac, and I'm an instructor for Old English, Modern German, and Middle High German with Signum University's Space Program. I'm offering a module on the Middle High German text König Rother, a medieval German epic about a semi-historical, semi-legendary, and semi-heroic ancestor of Charlemagne. König Rother is a particularly fascinating text because it combines elements of oral poetry with high medieval literary culture and creates a story that is equal parts farce, crusader romance, and epic. My module gives students the opportunity to learn how to read the literature of the Holy Roman Empire in the original language. This course is open both to veterans of our Middle High German series and to literary-minded readers interested in broadening their familiarity with medieval culture. I look forward to seeing you in space. Thank you. Wesathala und willkommen leofa jestesmin. My name is Isaac Schendel, and I'm a preceptor for Old English Conversational German and Middle High German with Signum University's Space Program. I'm starting a new cohort for our 8-part Old English series of month-long modules. In this series, we will develop all the language skills and the translation skills necessary to read Old English comfortably. In our module, we begin reading Old English from the get-go, so you're always learning both the language and the culture at the same time. Riddles, epic poetry, travel literature, medical handbooks, our series has it all. I look forward to seeing you in space. Gabriel Midale.
Hello, I'm Liam Daley. I'm a faculty member here at Signum University, and in Gothic Doubles, we will be looking at 2 short novels that wrestle with the problem of good and evil. Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. In Stevenson's tale, of course, Dr. Jekyll tries to isolate his evil impulses and in the end only creates a monster that he cannot control. In Wilde's tale, Dorian seems to enjoy eternal youth while his portrait suffers the physical and moral consequences of his misdeeds. But of course, as the old saying goes, sooner or later, we all get the face we deserve. So in looking at this sinister pair of pairs, we will be not only reading the texts of both novels themselves, but also looking at a few early reader responses to these poems just to show the shock and alarm that both texts created in the Victorian reading public when they were first introduced to the world. So I'm very excited to be teaching this class. Hope you can join me.